Jamie here, JB here. Hope everybody's doing an outstanding Thursday, August 28th, 9:06 a.m. Apologize, a couple minutes late here. Talk really quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from their S&P future markets, slightly in the green here on the heels of NVIDIA's earnings. Another monster quarter. I mean, just insane growth for a company that does their scale of revenue and earnings. It's just mind-boggling, right? 50, was it 50, 56% growth year over year on the top line. And, here's a company doing, $170 billion in revenue. I mean, that's just remarkable. And what's more remarkable is that trend probably continues. So they beat on earnings, but there was some concern, right? And the concern was no revenue from China, HCO chips, so there's still uncertainty there. I I mean, it's being shaken off, similar to that, the news that came out where they had to write off like 5 billion in inventory, right? So to me, it's uh thankfully, so for now, knock on wood, it's not a sell the news event, right? And so the earnings strong enough to kind of avert that scenario. And then it almost looks like maybe we'll get a red to green before the open. I mean, we got 23 minutes in before the open or sometime into the open. And then I think it just bodes well for the rest of the space. And I don't know if those other names, like you take a look at a Broadcom or any of these places in the energy or the infrastructure, that's going to benefit from higher AI capex spend, but you have to think they're either going to stay flat or they're going to take off. So good stuff. Got that out of the way. It's kind of like having to go to the doctor, right? You don't look forward to it for your annual visit. You don't look forward to it, but when it's done, you feel better, right? It's like, all right, got that out of the way. Now we can move on to the market. And so this morning you have GDP, the second read or second revision on second quarter GDP revised up to 3.3% from 3%. So not too shabby there. And then you also have the initial jobless claims came in a tad less than expected. So now if you have the well, I guess the picture being painted that the jobs report is going to be rough, and we're going to get it next week, and that's going to be probably the most anticipated jobs report in recent memory. Maybe that kind of eases or alleviates some of the concerns. Uh, so that's kind of that. Tomorrow we get PCE data. You got to think it's going to be a tad hotter than expected. Hopefully not too hot, right? Too hot would not be a good thing either. It would probably be a bad way to end the week into a holiday week. So that's kind of so. Hopefully, just inline number PC data into Friday, and then we can have a nice weekend and start next week off. Earnings season's kind of rolling out. We start getting the end of quarter three, and not only then we get into a historically more volatile time frame where you have folks coming from vacation, more volume from holiday, from the summer, whatever you want to call it. So it should be interesting. So S&P after a little caution starting Monday, now solidly in the green. Another all-time high closed yesterday. It's up at 647 here in the pre-market. I talk about the range of 628 to 646. Got to probably update that. At some point, I'll put a support resistance line. Probably going to be around 633 on the SPY. And that'll be kind of like the line in the sand area where I'll be a little more bearish if that breaks. But speaking of consolidation or markets being somewhat cautious, small caps, right? I mean, they're slightly in the green for the week, 0.28%, I think, to the upside after Monday's over 1% pullback. But monster, well, I wouldn't say monster, but you take a look, it's August. I think it was I saw it somewhere on FinTwit. Small caps having its best August in 25 years or longer. Up nearly over 8%. You take a look, I was talking about it yesterday. If you look at a chart, it almost looks like it's stair stepping, right? Takes a step down and then two steps up, and then a step back and two steps up, which is bullish, right? So we'll have to see how the rest of the week plays out. But I always talk about my ideal scenario, especially with markets at all-time highs, some consolidation and small caps taking the baton. And typically that bodes well too for biotech names. So that could be interesting into the end of the year. So good stuff there. All right, now just quick on individual names. First, obviously, I'll talk about SERV. Monster day yesterday, up 13%. Back over its 50 and 200-day moving average. Took care of that in one session. All this because of Wedbush initiated the stock at outperform $15 price target. To me, it just needed a kick, right? And I can go on for 20 minutes talking about how I think, like I did yesterday morning, around the bull case on SERV and how I think it's trades substantially higher. If once we get to 2026, then you're going to talk about revenues that if you're looking at forward revenues is one thing, but when we talk about revenues that are going to occur in the current year, totally different story. And then you start looking at guidance 2027, and you can start making the case that maybe it's a 30+ stock in 2026, if not higher. For now, a lot of folks disagree, huge short interest. So maybe I'm wrong, right? Not naive enough to think that I'm 100% correct all the time, but I think I'm pretty convicted that I'm mostly right here, and I think it's going to trade substantially higher in the coming months. 1375, that's the big spot. I think that happens quick. I put on the watch list this morning. Rather be early before the premiums get in than trying to chase this. So I locked some of the October strikes in for 100% and then over 200%. And I'll just continue to hold those. I was actually at the end of the day going to use that last sell to add some higher strikes. I might do that today. I'm going to wait for 12 bucks to break and hold if that happens. You also take a look at a chart and you have a tight Bollinger Band. Well, I wouldn't say they're pinching, but they're tight. So that could precede a nice move here. So really like SERV for upside. You know that. I'm not going to go on a rant there. But I also have the September strikes, which are back to life. Some of the best trades I've had are trades that come back to life. Never wrong, just early, right? All right, so that's SERV. IIPR, just slow and steady to the upside over multi-week highs here. I was saying yes, it's going to be like a dam break. Once that 5750 breaks, it's going to be off to the races. Again, not the most sexy name, not the most liquid name. You don't see crazy volume, but it's going in the right direction, right? And it looks like the sellers are gone. I talk about it, especially with the possible catalyst of some kind of news in regards to marijuana or some reclassification. I think that's just going to set the sector on fire. I don't think it needs to happen for IIPR to get into the 60s. So once 5750 breaks, I think it's off to the 60s and beyond. My October strikes are I already sold some to cover some costs. They're up at 200%. I'll just hold those and I might look for some higher strikes just because similar to SERV. Once this takes off, I think those premiums are going to start to skyrocket. So that's IIPR. Also, ex-divvy date. You have to check on that. I always talk about it. Their divvy, I think it's like $1 and change now. So, and I think the divvy's in September, so it kind of skews the calls a little bit, especially as that date gets closer. You look at the calls and say, wait a second, the stock's at $58 and $60 calls are only 50 cents or whatever. It might not make sense because the market price is in that dividend. All right, so that's IIPR. And then just some other names to play. And I don't know why Arista Networks is down $3 here in the pre-market. I don't see any news. Was it Marvel? Was there another name that reported that? Is that after the close? What? So I was just looking for some names to trade off this great quarter from NVIDIA. Obviously, Broadcom is one of the more obvious names. You have to think the CapEx spend. If you listen and you read everything about the NVIDIA earnings, their margins was 70%. But then you also have the bear cases, right? Well, they're both cases, right? One else to talk about the addressable market, right? TAM. Everybody likes to talk about TAM. Middle East, right? And POTUS had that trip to the Middle East, talk about all these deals, and you have to think that NVIDIA is going to get pieces of that, right? And NVIDIA. So I always mispronounce it, but you know what I'm talking about. But then you also have the flip side, right? They have NVIDIA has a huge revenue and huge revenue growth, but a lot of that is made up of a small amount of customers, right? 40-50% are made up of only 4 or 5 customers. So you always hear that that spin too, but you have to think like this lifts all boats, all the CapEx spend, not just as they chase AI, right? And that just continues. So Broadcom's an easy one. I mean, the energy names, I don't know what outside of that one I'm going to look at. And, I don't know if they're going to run and gun, right? Is Broadcom going to hit all-time highs here today? Is it going to trade? It might trade to 310, right? So that's how I'll trade it, but it could also trade flat here as maybe some of that's priced in. I don't know. So I was looking at Arista, and Arista is always one of my favorite names to play, and I missed the earnings run up. Tried to trade it back in April. I'll continue to look for opportunities to trade that one. Pool disappointing. It's I wouldn't call it make or break today, but you look at the chart, and I mean, these candles, similar to IIPR, it's not the most liquid name, right? Only 200,000 shares traded yesterday, and that's kind of like average. That's status quo, a little less than average, but higher highs, higher lows. If it starts to break down under 210, then you have to start to make the case, hey, maybe lower lows. It's going to be lower highs and lower low scenario. I'm hoping that doesn't play out. I don't think it will. Still like this one to finally break out. Just has to get over that 200-day moving average. And then there's still earnings after the close today. And Ulta's one of those names. I think I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. It's like I remember trading this one back in the day. I could never wrap my head around like a $25 lipstick, right? That just mind boggles me. Similar to the Starbucks, like a $10 coffee or whatever. It's just those are things I just can't wrap my head around. And sometimes if I can't wrap my head around something, I probably should just stay away. And I have a young daughter. Back before I didn't trade, I didn't. Before I traded, I didn't have a young daughter. Now, as the years go on, you have a young daughter and a wife, and well, so you kind of like you understand a little bit the pricing of these items when they come home, and you're like, that's a $25 moisture stick or what, all these different items, and then I remember looking at Ulta, I'm like, how is this sustainable, right? But that's why when it doesn't make sense, sometimes best just to stay away. So I look at Ulta's chart right now. I'm like, this looks set up primed, especially, possible issues with consumer tariffs. You can make this whole bear narrative around Ulta, and uh, it doesn't make sense to me. So I'm just going to stay away. But if I was going to get some position, probably be on the put side. The thing with Ulta, there's some names that I've traded over the years that have some great post earnings moves right at the open. So Ulta is one of those names. So in lieu of trying to trade it today, I might look tomorrow for some opportunities depending on earnings. Um, but yeah, never go against the female consumer. I guess you would say. I don't even know what wording is right, and if I'm trying not to offend anybody, but it's just one of those names. Just I can never wrap my head around it. So I'll stay away. But if I was, I'd be getting puts. I think that's it, folks. Have a great day. I put on a watch list. I'm not saying I'm bearish at all. I'm just cautious, right? So I'm not going to be overly aggressive on later dated strikes. If I do, it'll probably be of the small cap variety, right? Because I'm more bullish the small caps than I am overall indexes, S&P and Nasdaq. On the flip side too, I'm open to some lotto calls today. So in lieu of trying to get some later dated strikes, I'll probably look like Reddit. I mean, all the way down to 208 yesterday. That's another name, just surprising, especially with Google's strength recently. How is Reddit not back in the 250? So that could be one to trade. MDB, which missed a huge rally on that. Yet no earnings after the close, just kind of reaffirming MDB. You have to think MDB is going to trade in the 300s. Today it's at 299.50. Just I don't know. The premiums are expensive, so I'll probably just stay away from that one. And then you have to have the worry that you're trying to do FOMO, right? You missed out, so you're trying to do like a revenge trade on MDB. So I might just stay away from that one. But that probably trades 305 today. All right, let's have a great day, folks. I'll be back. Rock and roll.